RotoGrinders! Hey, welcome to Monday Showdown Live. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender Head, aka Blender HD. Call me whatever you want, as long as I'm soloing first in the big Showdown contest tonight on DraftKings or FanDuels. And I'm joined by every Monday by Tyler Tamboline Tambo, who also, if I don't solo first, you could. Oh, how about this? I don't mind duplicating with one person, so just me and you. Is that
Okay.
good?
I'll take that deal. That's a fair deal for sure. Yeah.
That's
And
250. What I mean, up top it's 500 to first, plus what second is who knows? Maybe it's 300,000 altogether.
I'll take it.
But we're both looking to make unique lineups tonight for the large showdown contest. I know we have viewers out there. We're in the YouTube chat. If you're in the YouTube chat, say hello. We'll see you. We'll answer questions as always. We're running a promo. $5 off Core 4 Premium. It's rotogrinders.com/media/MNF. It's in the YouTube chat. It's in the description. You get NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA. You get all the content. There's so much content, it's ridiculous for premium members. The projections, lineup HQ. You get everything. $5 off. It's one of the cheapest all-in-one packages for those four sports in the industry. And these are the tools that I use. Tambo, you use Lineup HQ. I built 60 lineups for tonight. I use Lineup HQ. I set up, oh no, look how many groups. It's ridiculous. 30 groups, right? I got tons of rules and tons of everything. And especially for tonight's slate, I think rules are depending on the lineup construction you want to go for, I think a lot of people are going to make a rule that I didn't make, and we'll go over that. But it's Raiders, it's Saints. I mean, probably the four main options on this slate are both quarterbacks, Carr, Breeze, and both running backs, Kamara and Jacobs. I'm assuming those four would get the bulk of the ownership tonight.
Yeah, I think so. I think especially the running backs for the captain slot. And then I think you might have forgot. I know it's people think it's a joke on Twitter, but I do think it's certainly worth considering is Taysom Hill is going to be in the conversation, right? With no Michael Thomas, the ability to use him in any way, shape, or form. Last week alone, they used him 5 or 6 ways. So I don't know your thoughts on him, but he's sort of the other guy that comes to mind as the obvious value. But I think you can leave a lot of money on the table tonight as well.
Right. If I take a look at my 60 lineups, I've left 3,000 on the table in one of them, and the most I've spent is 49.8. But I'm also controlling like my ownership, so like some of these lineups may not be. I hope some of these lineups are not duplicated more than 10 times. But the correlation, because when playing these showdown contests, it's a lot about correlation, a lot about being unique. I think a lot of people are going to group out Kamara and Latavius Murray, and at 3,400. I don't think people realize how much time Murray actually sees on the field. He actually gets a decent amount of work. And with Thomas gone, Kamara essentially is a wide receiver that rushes the ball. That I would not be completely shocked if Murray lines up in the backfield and Kamara lines up in the slot on some plays.
Yeah, I think you're right. And most people automatically group out the running backs, right? Max of one. And I think especially like you just mentioned what we'd already talked about with Michael Thomas being out, you don't have any idea exactly what they're going to do, but you could easily see Kamara become this wide receiver role and have Murray just bang it in when they get in close or anything. And for 3,400, he doesn't really need to do a lot, right? So they can certainly still match up together, no problem. And I've got some lineups like that as well.
Another thing that we have to talk about, because we saw it in the last game, concerns going into this season is Josh Jacobs going to catch balls out of the backfield? He caught, 5 last week? I don't know if we're going to continue to see that, but we know that the Saints' rushing defense is pretty good. It's one of the top-ranked rushing defenses. So Jacobs' rushing prop is actually lower than normal. But if he's going to catch balls out of the backfield, I mean, truthfully, I have more Jacobs captain lineups than I do have Kamara captain lineups. Kamara, we could agree. I don't think we have to discuss any further. Kamara is probably the highest raw points, floor ceiling player on the slate, probably the optimal captain. The question is that can you make a Kamara captain lineup that isn't duplicated more than 10 times? I'm not sure about that. My Kamara captain lineups have some really Hopefully they take the field type of plays in them. But I think I'm more apt on this slate. Like my line of construction very much is if I'm playing a Saints player in my captain spot, I'm not playing many Saints in my lineup. And if I'm playing a Raiders captain, all of them are cheaper. So I don't mind 3-3s with Raiders. I don't mind 4-4-2s with a Raiders captain. But if like Kamara captain, I'm just hoping that like all the production goes through Kamara or all the production goes through Sanders or through Cook. And of course, obviously with the receivers, you pair that up with Breeze if they're in the captain. You know, like if Traquan Smith is in the captain, use Breeze in the flex because they correlate with one another at ceiling games. But I don't have any. I set a rule in lineup HQ to not have more than 3 Saints in a lineup.
Okay, I don't think I went that aggressive, but I do understand it fully, and I think it's like you said, that's how you're going to get unique with it. So I actually don't hate that. And when you said like sounds like you're going pretty heavy with Kamara and the captain, and probably rightfully so to your point. Of him most likely being optimal, there's going to be a lot of tilt, like I said, if it is a Taysom Hill or Latavius Murray. But it's like you said, not to say that they can't work out together. So I've definitely got some lineups with Kamara and the captain, Taysom Hill in the flex. And I know that most would say he's going to eat into the Kamara work, but I think one thing that people are forgetting, and maybe that's why they don't put them together a lot, is that he could literally throw him a pass in this one. They could also both get there, that he's so cheap. And then I don't really think it's enough is being talked about beyond just the obvious that Michael Thomas is out. What does that actually mean? And how does a team like the Saints operate with this many guys across the board that they can use? There's plenty of opportunity for those guys to combine and score together. So I'm really not afraid of that. And then I went with the only time, I guess, the reason I said I wasn't as high on the 3-3 or 3 or less is because I also see some scenarios here where Breeze, Monday Night Football, the Saints just come out and smash. At the same time, one of the other builds that I'm heavy on tonight is the other side of that, is that, Oakland actually keeps pace. I think a lot more people think this is just going to be a Saints stomping, and I don't necessarily think that to be the case. I think it'll be tighter than we think, and I kind of like the 3-3 builds that you mentioned, or even the 4-2s.
Right, I'm playing the opposite. Like, it seems like me and you are I'm playing for a Raiders win, and I have zero Taysom Hill. I have none of them. Absolutely nothing.
Ooh. Yeah, I can see why.
I think he's going to be overowned. If he beats me, fine. We've seen Taysom Hill break showdown slates before. But I think that's the reason why. I mean, we have him projected owned. If you're a premium member, you'd be able to see it. I mean, I have to go to my excluded to see. I mean, 26% owned. I know he's a $2,200 player. So, yes, okay. I get it for that cheap. But I just think if he doesn't get in on a trick play or something like that, I could just destroy 26% of the lineups, and there are guys that are even cheaper than him that could beat him anyway. So, like, yeah, I get it. It's just that I just don't like the ownership. I'm playing. I mean, I don't have Breeze as a captain at all. I typically don't play many lineups with quarterback captains because it's very hard for them to get there without a wide receiver outscoring them. But the Raiders have cheap enough receivers that I'm playing car captain lineups only because the combined. They're cheap. Like if you were to play Breeze and the captain, and then Kamara, and then Sanders, or Cook, like you're dead. Like you need Josh Hill. You need some of the $1,000 guys, and then most likely that lineup is duplicated. So like I look at that construction going, if that wins, so be it. So then I don't win today. But I think people, if we take a look at DK Sportsbook, Tambo, guess. This is an easy question because I'm setting it up for it because it's a trick question. Who has a higher passing yardage prop, Breeze or Carr?
Breeze.
No, Carr. Carr's at 267. Breeze is at 262. Right, the line has moved. The line has moved. Saints were much higher favored, and the unders. It moved 3 points under. The Raiders are getting more towards their side. I mean, it's likely due because Michael Thomas is out and he's a big piece of their offense. But I think people are coming in, building for showdowns as if they're playing Latavius Murray for garbage time. I'm playing Latavius Murray in a competitive game that he gets a goal line carry. I mean, I'm not playing. He's 3,400. Like I'm playing for a Raiders win, and I think Murray plays 30 to 40% of the snaps regardless in that spot. Like I'll play Deontay Harris before I play Taysom Hill. Like I'll play some of these cheap the much cheaper guys, I'll play Jason Witten in a car stack or something for a touchdown, or even Josh Hill. If he's going to be, 4% owned, I'll
Yeah.
play him.
I'm glad you brought him up. He's the tilt of the slate, because when everyone sees Hill get in the end zone and realize it's not Taysom Hill and it's Josh Hill, I've got some Josh Hill lineups there at $800. I don't mind that. And like I said, there's certainly a story to be told there with that play. It's someone that Breeze has used in the past. He's down his number one pass catcher. I think that could definitely be an option. I also like that you brought up Harris. And what about Booker right there? Do you have any Booker lineups?
Yeah, I got some Booker. Of course, I don't have Booker with Jacobs. Like, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Because they're both not going to be on the field at the same time. If Booker comes in on third downs, catches a swing pass, and takes it to the yard, it's going to come out of Jacobs' production. I get. It's just that Murray may get 10 plus touches. He's 3,400. He gets goal line work. His touchdown prop. Like, I love, for these showdown slates, a lot of times I use the wisdom of the crowds, and just I look at projections. Like, I get the blitz. You get the blitz from Derek Carty, but I also look at touchdown props, and Kamara, yes, minus 155. Okay, I get it, right? But if I were to tell you who has a higher touchdown prop, Murray or any of the other wide receivers on the Saints besides Sanders?
It sounds like you're setting it up for Murray.
Right, of course. I mean, if it wasn't that, I wouldn't have brought anything up. But Murray's plus 165 for a touchdown. Tre'Quan Smith's plus 250. Everyone else on the Saints is plus 300 and above. Sanders is plus 125. Cook is 140. Cook is $8,000. Latavius Murray's plus 160. I mean, he's 3,400. So, like, I could get there. Latavius Murray could have 20 rushing yards and a touchdown. And he could be in the optimal for 3,400 at that. If Murray was 6,000, okay, whatever. But these lineup constructions that you can make with Murray in there, we have his projected ownership at 14%. I think it's going to be higher. I think people are going to realize that he gets more touches than you think. But I don't think he passes 30%. And I think a lot of people will not play Kamara and Murray in the same lineup. So I'm building those types of lineups, and then these cheaper. I mean, they're not cheap, but Waller, Ruggs, Renfro, Edwards, these guys, they're cheap enough that they don't have to get 100 yards each. Like, Sanders needs 100 yards. Cook needs 100 and a touchdown, right? Waller needs a touchdown. Yeah. Ruggs, I mean, Carr could throw 280 yards and 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers, and he's the best captain if Kamara doesn't put up a bonus game or doesn't get in the end zone more than once. So, like, with less people doing it, with the cumulative ownership being less on that, like, yes, if the Saints go out and stomp them, then I lose. But I mean, that's the outcome that most people are building for, and I think this game is going to be much closer than that.
What's the? Let me ask you this. I'm following. What's the cheapest captain that you're running tonight?
Oh, the cheapest captain. Yes. And also, by the way, people
just
on
off the top of your head,
people on YouTube want me to shout out Dean for whatever reason. The YouTube chat always has the Dean people in it. We love Dean. We love Dean, but he can't be on every show. People on YouTube, he can't. Right?
Yeah.
The cheapest captain I have is Latavius Murray.
Okay, and that makes perfect sense. That's what I was going to say. So that makes sense. Other than that, I think it's, people will run Taysom Hill captains.
Oh, never do that. A $2,200 captain that may get 7 snaps. The only way that works out is if everyone's even. Like, yeah, if it's a low scoring game, okay, that's possible. This game has a total of 48.5.
You've got the over?
I don't got anything. I'm just basing, like, you could play for a low scoring game, but what I mean by when these lineups that win, like non-correlative mishmash of lineups win, we're talking about games that are like 13-6. Like, I'm not talking about like just low scoring, but really low scoring. When there's only like 1 or 2 touchdowns in the entire game and 5 field goals, and a kicker is like the 3rd highest scoring guy on the slate. Like, it's a 48.5 total. I mean, I'm expecting, if it's a low scoring game, it's still like 21-17. Which means a cheap-ass captain, unless they just happen to score twice, is just not going to be optimal. You're going to need someone you're going to need at least one of the top 2 or 3 scorers on the slate, depending on their price. And like I said before, there's going to be so many Kamara captain lineups that I'm way, under on Kamara captain. I still have some, but I needed to go through and just make sure that like I could take a look. I mean, my Kamara lineups have like Zay Jones in it, for crying out loud. And he may not even he may get 4 snaps.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's why I asked. The only thing, like I said, about the Taysom Hill thing is just the fact of Swiss Army knife, like they call him, right? If he does possibly get an opportunity here, it could be huge, right? It's a guy that throws passes. Even last game with Michael Thomas in, he was throwing a pass, catching balls, and rushing. And we've seen him get red zone work. So that's why I don't think that one's as bad. I'm with you. I'm against all the other cheaper captains. Don't really have any of those that I can think of off the top of my head. I've got it up here, but I'm not going through every lineup. I've got about 40 in the big one tonight. And I think, like you said, I don't mind the Latavius Murray for sure, because I think, the touchdown prop you mentioned, the fact of how much he may get used as well. If they swing Kamara out, using them together is already unique. And then, like you said, putting other guys across from the other side, that's just a perfect storm or a perfect setup. And you're not getting too off the board. I know today some thought process was brought up on Twitter that you were involved in. That was good conversation, just a matter of, what builds for what. And like you said, there's 2 different guys building for 2 different styles. There's the camp that builds maybe possibly more minus EV lineups by just building to avoid duplicates altogether, but it could involve crazy plays or leaving so much money on the table versus the other side. So I don't know if you want to elaborate, but I just thought that was good sort of evergreen conversation that you could even apply towards this slate, right? Like how you would apply it towards this game, for example.
Right. In large field contests, like when you get into smaller field stuff, like you have to build lineups based on win probability. There's one side, and then on like duplication on another side, because there's only so many options. So there are a lot of people. Most people think in terms of win probability. Okay, I got to jam in Kamara, Jacobs, Carr, Breeze, and then whatever. It's like it's in if you're playing a 555, a 500-man contest. Like maybe you could do that. Maybe you have a unique lineup or split only with 2 people or something, and it's a 50K to first, and okay, you could do it. Dude, this contest tonight, the $10 whatever on DraftKings is 206,000 entries. Like if you get first place and you're like for $2,300 split up, you can't. That's not sustainable. Like I'd rather have that lineup than lose. But truthfully, you're if you did that all the time, you're going to end up losing more of your money than anything. But there's another side. If you could go to the 2 extreme, where you could build 150, I could build 60 completely unique lineups that are most likely to be unique. But the win probability of those lineups, some of them are just like disgustingly low. I mean, so low that
really bad.
So it's a matter, since we don't know ownership before lock. Like if you told me what the ownership was, I could build. If I knew what everyone else was doing, I knew that if I looked at a lineup and I'm like, I think this will be less than 10 people, and it turns out 36 people have it, I would eliminate it. But I don't know that yet. So if I'm building 60 lineups, I'm hoping to my goal is to get 30 unique. Most of the time I can't even get that. But I don't know which ones are which. So I have to play 60 just to hope that I want all of them to be under 10 duped, but sometimes I can't even get, I don't predict that well enough. And I'm getting a little too chalky. But this is for the really large field stuff. So I don't want to put, like, there are guys that I excluded completely from the player pool that are going to be in the game. Like, I'm not playing any Adam Troutman. Like, I'm just not going to play. I'm not playing Foster Moreau. I'm not playing Ty Montgomery or Alec Inhold or Derek Carrier or Marcus Callaway. I'm not even playing Jalen Richard, right? I'm not even playing this Aguilar at 5,400. If I'm going to play a guy that's going to play 6 snaps, I'll pay for Zay Jones, and hopefully he catches a pass. If these guys beat me, they beat me. It's just a matter of the lineups that I could make that have like I make groups so I don't have like multiple of these guys. If there are guys that are going to be like 5% owned or less, I don't want 3 of them in my lineup. Yes, it will be a unique lineup. I will leave 8,000 on the table. There's a 0.002% chance that that's the winning combination, but like I think I could get better win probability, even though the lineups that I'm playing may be duped 7 times instead of 1, but 7, anything under like 10 to 15, I'm perfectly fine with. And sometimes you need to take stands. My stand today is I thought in my head for 2,200 Taysom Hill at projected 25 to 30% ownership, either I decide to play twice that or I play none of it. And looking at this slate, I'm choosing to play none. I'm choosing to play Deontay Harris instead. I'm choosing to play Devontae Booker. I mean, I'm not talking about I have them in a million lineups. My Latavius Murray captain is 1 out of 60 lineups. That's it, right? So it's not like I'm going overboard, but like if Taysom Hill beats me, then I lose. But if Taysom Hill bombs, well then all my 60 lineups are live, and I see more paths to Taysom Hill bombing at that ownership. He's the type of play that if he was 12% owned, I'd be playing him on a slate. It's just that he's like the Swiss Army knife. People know this. People like look at that and go, Thomas is out. They may have more trick plays, and his ownership balloons. And I'm just if he beats me, he beats me. But I mean, you could play perfectly good lineups with him in it. It's not. I'm not playing him because I think he'll do badly. It's just based on the ownership.
What about defense and kicker tonight? What like you're just that's I know like you say not playing for the over the under, but obviously a majority of your builds or at least a portion go towards one side of the game or the other or what you see happening. You've already commented a couple times on the Oakland side, and I don't hate that. Like I said, I'm certainly into that. A lot of my lineups are built for that side. I like Darren Waller at tight end, but I was just curious what you're doing with the defense and kickers tonight on this slate.
I have both kickers in my pool. I'm not going to play them together. I have the Raiders defense in my pool, and I've excluded the Saints.
Okay.
But primarily, to me, it's only because of price. The Saints defense is 5,200, and the Raiders defense is 2,800. Whenever I look at the kickers and the defenses, I always look at what's the likelihood of players below them scoring more than them. So with the kickers, you got Murray, you got Harris, you got Booker, you got Witten, you got Hill, you got Jones. That's who I have in my pool at least. You got Taysom Hill there. I know. I have excluded him. I think Murray beats the kickers and the defenses. I think Harris has a chance of beating the kickers and the defenses. Now, I have lineups that have two of those in because if you want to make, Kamara lineups, in the captain or Jacobs in the captain, you're going to need maybe two of these cheap guys. So I can't get rid of, I don't want to play all my cheap lineups with like Murray, Harris, Booker, with like two of those guys. So I'll put a kicker there instead because they'll be lower owned. But when the Saints defense is 5,200, now you're adding Bryan Edwards to the list that's underneath that. And I think comparatively to the ownership, if Bryan Edwards is only going to be like 15% owned, and the Saints defense will be about 15% owned. Like I think more likely than not, Edwards actually beats the Saints defense scoring. I mean, obviously if there's a pick six, I mean that goes out the window. That I just don't find value, especially since I'm building Raiders win type of lineups. Like I'm just not going to bother with the Saints defense. If the Saints defense beats me, it beats me.
Yeah, I like what you talked about there with the price, especially. We talked about that Head Shopper and I a little bit for the Sunday show last week, just around comparing again what you're up against. And like you said, you talked about some of the other plays around there that you could easily run with versus needing to go to a $5,200 defense. Some will make the argument that you pay up for probability in the sense that sometimes that's lower owned, but when you're looking at the Saints on lineup HQ at 21%, feels like a lot more people think that's a thing. And like you said, there's just so many other plays above and below that you could go to that are in a fine spot that there's no real sense versus you've got the Raiders sitting there at 12% that already tells a different story and then is only going to be on really 1 out of 10 lineups, basically, based on that percentage.
Right. I mean, I think some of the Saints guys are overpriced. I think Emmanuel Sanders, I mean, he obviously has a ceiling, but I mean, we've seen with this Saints offense that they could spread the ball around, right? I mean, Sanders is not, yeah, sure, he could be 12 for 150 with 2 touchdowns. You're right, it could happen. Jared Cook, it could happen. But we've seen so much that Kamara is going to eat up into a lot of that passing usage. That at 8,800 and 8,000 on DraftKings, like I do have some of them, but I'm underweight in comparison to the Raiders players. I mean, obviously there's more Raiders receivers, but I think Carr's distribution of targets is much narrower than Breeze's. That's the main reason why I'm not playing Breeze captain lineups, because like for Breeze to get there, he needs like 4 touchdowns at that price. Carr is 9,200. I could fit lineups in. And I also don't mind playing Carr and Jacobs together from a passing perspective. If Jacobs is going to catch 5 or 6 balls out of the backfield, like some team lineups may not have that. They may go, well, if I'm going to play a passing attack, I'm going to fade Jacobs. It's like, well, who says Jacobs doesn't catch one and takes it 20-yard swing pass in the red zone, those types of things. But yeah, my most exposed captains on this slate, for me at least. I mean, I spread it out typically. I don't go like all in on captain. My number one is Waller. I got Waller, Kamara, Jacobs, Ruggs, Carr, Edwards, and then like a little Traquan, Cook, Sanders, and Murray.
Okay, so we didn't talk about that, but we line up. My number one is Waller tonight. So we got the same there. Kamara, I'm up there with you. Like I said, just too good, not too, the spot's too strong. And if he doesn't work out, I understand, but my lineups with him are built accordingly in the sense to what you talked about, try and be extremely unique, going back and forth with it. And then I like a little bit of the receiving game. I think Sanders, like you mentioned, could be overpriced, but I also think it's an opportunity for, again, that's one where I think he'll be lesser owned in the captain. So why not have some of those? That's sort of how I looked at that situation on that side. And depends. We'll see what it actually shakes out like, because again, with Michael Thomas out, lineup HQ for premium members shows that he's at the highest ownership, 44%. So it will translate some, but I think people still like to do those crazy captains like Traquan Smith, Ruggs on the other side. I know once they announced he was in, people were talking about that. So I'm not completely against it. I just think it's, like you said, it's to each their own. I'm just willing to go there with it.
Right. I'm not playing kicker captains, defense captains. Like, they don't score enough in really low scoring games. And you could play that. Hey, this game could go really under and be 13-3. I mean, yes. And then who knows? The lineups that win that could literally be any combination with no correlation. And you could play for that scenario. I'm not. I'm playing more Raiders than Saints, and I'm limiting my Saints exposure. That I'm not playing four guys. I mean, I was considering making it so that the Saints, I only had 2 Saints in every lineup. If you read Eric Beimfor, if you're a premium member, he does the Slate IQ article for Showdown slates, and he analyzes this and he does simulations. And based on his analysis, all the leverage, when you weighing win probability with the ownership, is in playing like a secondary running back or a secondary wide receiver at captain, and playing four players from the underdog team. So I looked at that, and I was considering doing that for all of my lineups, and then I saw plenty of 3-3s that I liked, but I kind of did a hybrid of like, just make sure I don't have any more than 3 Saints in a lineup, because I think more people are going to roster Saints than Raiders, so I think I'm more likely to be less duped with lineups that have 3, 4, or even 5 Raiders in them.
Yeah, I agree. And Eric's stuff, like you said, is sharp. So if you're not premium yet, sign up, check that stuff out every week, because it gives you all the leverage opportunity that you need to be able to at least build unique. We're not saying it's going to work out every time, but in the long term, as we've talked about, that's going to put you in a better state in these large contests, 206,000 people for $500,000 for $10. It's a great lottery, but you want to be building accordingly if you want an actual chance at taking this thing down.
And when we're at lock, I believe it's 8:15. I always get confused if it's 8:15 or 8:20, depending on the night.
Today was 15. Yeah, today was 15.
Right. So you can you open up and we could see some ownership?
I was just trying to pull that up, and it's still saying give us a couple of minutes here, but
right.
We'll see what it pops up.
They're always a little bit slow. Eric Johnson asked about any Brian Edwards captain. I do.
Yeah, I did use them in a few. Like I said, that was sort of go the other way of the other side, right? If you're going to use a Sanders who's overpriced, like you said, I had him in some, but you can go. So Sanders is a 6% captain, 35% overall. Breeze 10% captain, 60% overall. Derek Carr only 5% captain. Henry Ruggs only 2.8% captain.
What's Carr's flex ownership?
He is 42%.
Yes, we're right. We projected him at 43, so that's good.
That's good. Jacobs is 18% captain, 64% flex.
Okay, we were on point with that.
And Kamara is 24% captain and 79%.
Okay,
ownership.
It was 80% on Jamino. Jamino's hamster wheel is doing well. How about Waller?
Yeah. Can I find one? Yes, 7% captain, 51 overall.
Oh, he's way more
I like that a lot.
than I thought he would. And how about Lat Murray?
This one might take me.
That's the big one for me.
Okay,
he was projected at 14. I thought it would be more like 22 to 25. The fact that you can't find him, that's a good sign.
It is a good sign. Now I'm on the actual tournament looking through, so I'll have to go to my own probably is the easiest way. But this was the first way it populated for the ownerships to actually pop up. So let me just go live for a second and type in Latavius. He is. Oh, it doesn't show me in this screen. Interesting. I'm not sure what he is. I don't know if you have it on your side.
Yeah, you didn't play much of him?
I played him, but on my side, it's not showing in the
On the app?
On the lineup side. I'm not in the app right now, so I'm just trying to go by what I see here. I don't see him. I just saw another one I was interested in was
Deontay Harris is only 11% owned.
Traquan Smith is 3% captain.
Deontay Harris just got 11-yard run.
There you go. Okay, Lat Murray, 5% captain, 34%.
Yeah,
overall.
way more. Exactly. That makes sense. Brian Edwards only 11% owned. Oh, my lineups are way more leveraged than I expect. That's a good thing.
Taysom Hill, I don't know if I said him, 3% captain, 24 overall.
Okay, we had that on point. I mean, I figured that.
And then, Ruggs ended up only coming in at 18 overall. I think that's interesting.
I'm way over on Deontay Harris. We had him projected at 20% ownership. He came in at 11.
11, yeah.
I was over on 20. So same for Brian Edwards. Brian Edwards was projected at 12. He ended up being 11, and I have like 3 times that.
Yeah, Renfro got some. He's at 13%.
Okay.
1% of the captain, so.
Where did all the ownership go? I mean, I'm assuming it's eaten up by the Saints.
Yeah, all the Saints have ownership. Like Cook is 40%, 7 in the captain. Traquan, like I said, is 3.5 in the captain, 21 overall. Saints D, 3.5 in the captain, 17 overall.
Right, and then Waller ate up a lot of the Raiders' ownership. So instead of we had him projected at 38% owned. If he came in over 50, that's what's eating away at the Brian Edwards and the Renfro and the Ruggs, all those guys.
Yeah, that's pretty common here. It looks like it's a common theme. And then, Breeze, 10% captain. That's
good. Pay the rake for me. That's fine.
Quite a lot. Yeah, that's
quarterbacks tend to be over-owned in the captain spot. That's why I don't like playing them. When they're 10K plus.
Almost 6%. So it's almost 20% of the entries are using a quarterback in the captain tonight. That's pretty interesting, let's call it. But I got none of Breeze in the captain. I've got some Carr, like you mentioned, just for how cheap you can build out that stack and click and pick a couple guys that he actually uses. Wasn't afraid of Jacobs, like you mentioned, because he actually is catching passes now, seemingly, and it seems like they've smartened up to that, so I think that's good. Yeah, don't really see anything else. I think it was strong going through everything as we did, brought out some game theory, some discussion. I think that's good.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, nothing. I don't see anything on Twitter that's happened yet. Hey, we don't know who's going to be injured, right? Because on yesterday, everyone gets injured. Wow. So whoever, and it's always the people that have it's always the people that people roster, right? It's like everyone goes for the Brashad Perriman cheap play, and then he gets injured, and Paris Campbell on the second play he gets injured, and you're just like, okay, well it's never the wide receiver one in a bad matchup that no one played at 3% own. It's not like, we see, I don't even know who it would be that, if
you're talking about poker though. This is the poker analogy where everyone only remembers the bad beats. They don't remember all the times they got away with it themselves, right? Like all those slates where that happened, that the wide receiver one that they didn't have at all, or let's say nobody was on Saquon yesterday. He goes out, everyone's like, oh man, that sucks for whoever owns him. Next thing you know, they get hit with 3 of their own injuries, and they're saying, oh, I get screwed 24/7. It's only because I rostered them, or only because they're chalk, or whatever. It's like, no, that's just, you're forgetting about the bad beats you've won. That's the other side of it.
Right. I mean, I didn't play Devontae Adams in cash yesterday, and I won because, I played Julio over Devontae. Julio scored less points than him, even playing the whole game. And
but the construction changed, on the 3v3 of what was.
Right. So, it ends up happening that, okay, the guys that played Paris Campbell and Brashad Perriman, I didn't play those. I played Deontay Johnson and CeeDee Lamb instead, and that was a huge, you saw in cash games, the 2v2, 3v3s were on DraftKings were just dramatic because of those injuries, and depending on whether or not you went up or down because anytime you went up, you lost. Because Julio, you lost, and Adams, you lost. Not many people went Hopkins. And then if you went mid-tier and you went Cooper or something like that, you probably missed on Johnson and Lamb anyway. So it ends up that it ended up that similar lineups that if you looked before the slate were like, wow, that's really close, was like the difference between a score of 85 and 140.
Yeah, it's like you said, though, pretty much everybody had those 3 running backs plugged in with Kyler and then likely Adams. So realistically, it was almost like a 5-spot push right out of the gate, where it was 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a D, 4v4. And then questionably, because like you said, there was even other wide receivers that started to become opportunities for plug and play with Perryman and Campbell and Johnson, Lamb, and whoever, pick your poison. But as you said, the minute you went Adams, you changed your construction and basically forced your lineup to where it was going.
Right. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter that you could show your inexperience by doing so, that were pointing out a lot of sharp players' cash lineups after the slate was over that had Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. And obviously what happened with Taylor was ridiculous, that he just didn't play. Like, he got injured in warmups and no one knew about it. It locks, and then Herbert's at quarterback. Or some of the sharp players had Haskins in there, not realizing that when Campbell went down, when Adams underperformed, like, Kyler Murray was chalk of all chalk in cash games on DraftKings. Like, you're not looking at their original lineup. If you're down by 30 points and you have a quarterback that's going to be 70% owned in cash, you're going to swap. They swapped to Taylor or Haskins because there was only 3 games going on. So they swapped to someone else. Kyler had a great game. Tyrod got a 0. But you don't realize that
you're right.
Right, that coming in, if the cash line yesterday was like something like 152 or something like, I don't know the exact number. If the cash line is 150 and you get a 149 or you get an 80, it's the same amount of money, $0.
Correct. Yeah.
So if you're down by 30 points and you know that someone's going to be chalk, like, by leaving them in, like, you pretty much you've changed your win probability down to like the cash to very little. It's much better to switch off and hope Kyler gets injured, or there's a 20-point difference or something. If you have a 2v2, switch off those 2 guys. So you can't necessarily judge sharp cash players' lineups like right after lock I noticed that immediately because I looked at the lineups. Because people were pointing it out. Like, oh, look how bad this guy's a high stakes, whatever. It looked like he had Tyrod Taylor with a 0. What kind of idiot is he? And I had to point out, it's like, dude, he left 1,200 on the tape. Like, you have to switch. If you didn't, you're losing money by not switching because you're not gonna cash otherwise.
So you've been busy on Twitter today. This was another sideline conversation you were in that I loved, again, that I thought you were sharp on, and it came down to about using information or giving out information or not. And this is the key piece. Like you said, not a lot of people would make that swap or understand the other reason some of these people went to Tyrod Taylor is because they had Mike Williams. So they looked for the double correlation to get off Kyler because Adams screwed them, to get Taylor in, to go with their Mike Williams to try and double capitalize where they're that far behind. And like you said, it didn't work out. It was never going to if Kyler has that game. But that's certainly the reason why some people did it. Like you said, I don't think enough people would have even thought to change out at quarterback on the guy that's 70 to 80% owned, let alone to correlate it up with someone to try and really take you on if they're going to take you on. You know what I mean? Like you said, a 149 or an 80, it didn't make a difference. So why wouldn't they go for the gusto if they're going to do that move? It doesn't make them not sharp, as you mentioned. It just
it makes them sharp. No, that move makes them sharp. That's what makes them sharp.
It does. That's what I'm saying. But not a lot of people are looking at that information to say, why would I even make a swap? Let alone if I was going to make the swap anyway, how could I make the swap make some even more sense to try and elevate myself within these to have a shot? Because they're feeling like they're dead, right? That's the thing.
Right, because the best, you have to go YOLO. If you have Mike Williams in there and
it's over.
And Tyrod throws a touchdown, you're getting 10 points, and you're getting a lot more on that one event, and you're down by 30 to people, and you're down by 30, and you're sharing 2 players. Like you gotta, you're switch. You gotta. You could do multiple. Obviously, there's 3 games going on. There's a lot of things you could do, but like if you don't, if I looked at those lineups and saw the chalk in there and them sitting at 111, that means they're not sharp. That means, like, didn't you know at that point that you needed to swap in order to have any chance? By not swapping, you're putting your cash probability at like 2%, maybe 2%. If you're down by 30 at that point. If you swap off, you're putting your cash percentage probably 4 times that. You still only have an 8% chance at hitting the line, but it's still better than 2 by not swapping. It won't happen that often.
Yeah.
But
and with how many injuries yesterday, Kyler could have got injured. It's a whole butterfly effect. What if he gets injured? And what if Tyrod doesn't? And what if that ends up happening? At least you gave yourself a chance, like you said. There's massive opportunity there versus almost none the other way.
Right. I mean, you could do that in GPP lineups as well. If you're down by 40 and you have yesterday and you have a Kyler Murray, Hopkins, whatever type of stack or whatever the chalk was, like you go flip it around, you start building, Watson, Fuller, the Texans onslaught stacks, because if that happens, at least you get them in cash. If you just keep it the way it is, you get nothing.
Yeah, and then there's further conversation around, like, if you're in a high dollar, high dollar small field, there's blocker situations as well, right? If you went with the cheap non-chalk stack and they get there early, and then you don't have enough, not that you have to put the chalk in, you play your best plays, but I'm saying you can be a little bit more, let a little bit more chalk get in there if you've already got there with a 3% owned stack that just absolutely goes bonkers, and you want to protect yourself from the field while still getting leverage and upside since you're the only one up near the top. I've seen that work out well for people in live finals and whatnot, right? Where they get there on what they thought and they have a backup plan. Again, super sharp, having a backup plan in place for a 2v2 or a 3v3 swap that protects yourself if your stack gets there, and then a plan to go if it doesn't get there and you've got to go for the min cash or for the more money possible at a live final.
Right. I mean, I yesterday I switched out a lineup. I had a Josh Allen stack, an Allen Diggs lineup that was mixed in with a Ravens. Like I was playing like Brown and Fuller together in the lineup, like Marquis Hollywood Brown, and then I switched it up because Allen and Diggs, that combination wasn't owned enough, and I just went to Hopkins, and I went to the other game. Give me Hopkins, McLaurin, and I switched down my defense because like I could go to the chalkier game in the late game because Diggs was barely owned and Allen was barely owned. I had Aaron Jones in that lineup, and he was under. So that lineup actually did extremely well. I mean, like 220-ish. I mean, it didn't. Yes, it did. It didn't. Win first or anything.
Didn't close the door, but it was good.
Right, but it was good. I saw pieces that went off early, and I'm like, okay, instead of being even more contrarian by playing overpriced Marquise Brown and a Will Fuller together, like how could I switch this up so I could get? I want to get pieces. I have no pieces of the Arizona-Washington game. I don't have Murray in my lineup because I have Josh Allen there, but he has a great score. So I'm like, how do I get the scoring in that game while not having Murray? And Murray would still have to beat out Josh Allen. So I'm like, give me Hopkins, give me McLaurin, switch down my defense, take out Drake, and play someone else. Not play that. I mean, the assessment that you could make there, you could make multiple choices. But I mean, the overall concept is that before the slate locks, you only have a certain amount of information. You have no idea what the games are going to do. Now that you have information, you can make the choice now that you have that information, rather than what a lot of people do is leave stuff alone, because you know what the worst thing in people's minds? To switch it out and you actually, if you left it the way it was, it would have won.
Oh yeah, I've done that. I have a bad story about that. 6-figure cost me, but yeah, it happens, right? But you got to make the right choices.
Right, but did you at the time that you switched, you were making you made the better decision. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I always reference it to like a puzzle, and we've got all the pieces, but guess what? You don't get the front of the box with the answer sheet. You won't know until after the game, but you still got to, whoever can put the puzzle together the fastest without having the box and the answer sheet in front of them, that's who does well and typically wins. So you got to know what goes where and what makes sense, and eventually the puzzle will come together. Even if it doesn't come together tonight, you could get it next weekend, or in the analogy of the puzzle, maybe tomorrow when you sit down after you eat your supper or whatever, you can go and put it together then.
So before we get out of here, I just want to ask you one question since you're doing PGA. I'm not playing PGA, but can you tell me what a Will Zalatoris is?
Yeah. A guy that did quite well for me over the weekend, actually. I had a run in the Million Maker, 19th place over the weekend with a 5 out of 6. A 5 out of 6 did end up winning it because of the way it's set up, but I had the third highest 5 out of 6 with Will Zalatoris. And yeah, he's a up-and-coming player. It's kind of unfortunate he'd get his PGA Tour card if not for the shutdown. He'll get it anyway when it comes back around, but it's been a challenge because you have to have 3 wins on the Korn Ferry Tour. He's by far, both stats-wise across large sample and just what we've seen lately, the best player on that tour. He actually ranks number 73 in the world, which is higher, tracking higher than Sung J M did, who was the Rookie of the Year last year. So if that tells you anything, this isn't a fluke. He's back at it again this week. I know the price is extremely insane on him, so people are going to talk about it and ask about it. But yeah, I don't know if this is the week to go heavy on him because the price jump coming off of that mental grind to play in the U.S. Open. But I mean, he's certainly a great golfer, and this field is certainly very weak. So you could definitely go there. I'll probably end up underweight because I don't want to miss out. I do love the guy, but I'm not going to try and get to his 25 or 30% level. I'll be well underweight that, just the way I set up my lineups.
But this past weekend, didn't the what happened that the large field GPP winner had a 5 out of 6?
Yeah, that's the same one, the Millie Maker.
Yeah,
it was a.
What did like all the chalk miss the cut?
No, well, it's not just that. It's when I've talked about this extensively, but this is one of the things that the U.S. Open particularly, where only one guy, Bryson DeChambeau, was 6 under. The rest were even or worse. You really need to get 6 guys you need as many guys at the top as you can. It's extremely hard to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it ended up happening though. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and a miscut who scored the highest got there. But it's hard enough to get the 5 guys out of the top 6 or 7 in your lineup is extremely challenging without building just really balanced lineups with guys that can grind it out. And yes, some of them have a +6 sitting in 7th place, but that's the way that tournament works.
I forgot it's the U.S. Open, so I'm assuming that's why people were tilting that you'd rather have your guy miss the cut, because guys were shooting like 6 over par 2 days in a row and actually losing points.
Yeah, the math was kind of really against that. The reason it worked out though was because if you had all your guys at the top on, like Friday night, so when you were a 5 out of 6, but you had 5 guys that were at the top, which is what you would have had here in this scenario, the wind really smashed the morning wave on Saturday. So the guys that were not in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even though you had that 20-point miscut, you weren't going to get any more points out of them, but you weren't going to lose any points on your top 5 guys, so to speak. And you didn't really. They ended up carrying on where they left off, and the morning got absolutely obliterated. So everyone's 5th and 6th man, if not worse, got destroyed. And it was tough it's really tough to bounce back from that, both mentally and just in general on a course like that. So that is what ended up happening. And so in the end, the guy in first place, even myself in 19th with another 5 out of 6, mine was like 1, 2, 3, 7, 11, and then one guy that had 20 points. So it's just the way it worked out at this event, but it's twofold because of what you said and because the weather wave, the way it hit the weekend, was really tough.
Well, if you want more PGA content, you got to sign up for RG Premium, the Core 4 subscription. $5 off. You can get that right now. RotoGrinders.com/media/MNF. The link is in the description of the video. Click on that. $5 off your Core 4 premium subscription. NBA, NFL, MLB, PGA, tons of premium content, lineup HQ access, all the projections. You get so much for one single price. As far as I could tell, no one scored a touchdown in the game yet.
It's 3-0 with 6 minutes, and the captain winner right now is the Saints D. That'll change.
Hopefully that'll change because I have none of them. So for Tyler, I'm Jordan Cooper. That has been Monday's Showdown Live on RotoGrinders.com.